Thanks for joining me on this journey, and welcome to the Journey with Jennie podcast on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV, where we hit all the topics that help and encourage you on this journey of life. Everything from health to mindset to business to finances. Anything that helps you and makes your life better, we cover it all. Welcome. And today we are talking about why dieting don't work. And this is going to be an amazing conversation. And I love it because I say conversation because it's not going to be just me today. I have an awesome guest for you. And I would like to introduce to you Camille Martin. Camille Martin is a registered dietitian, public health writer, and former chronic dieter dedicated to helping women quit dieting, set bigger and better goals, reclaim their excitement for life, and lose weight in the process. She spent nearly 25 years of her life on a diet, and she's passionate about showing women how to break free from the downward dieting spiral of failure and improve their relationship with food, change their destructive behavior habits and their negative thought patterns, and lose weight without dieting. She also wants to show women how setting and achieving a big goal that has nothing to do with losing weight is what will help you lose it, because the confident, inspired person you become while working toward it naturally adopts the thoughts and habits consistent with health. She wants to teach you what she has learned on her journey so you can shortcut the process and be on your way to a happier, healthier life, one that's no longer dominated by a desperation to lose weight. Camille is the owner of Love to Lose and lives in Charlotte, North Carolina with her 2 daughters and their rescue dogs. Please welcome Camille.
Jennie, thank you so much for having me. That's quite an introduction. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I am so excited to have you. And I just think this is going to be such an amazing conversation and such a treat for our audience, because the things that you have experienced and the desire that you have to help people because of the journey you've had is just really inspiring. And it's just lovely to see someone who is so passionate about really taking what has been not so great in your own life to be able to put that forward to help others. So I'm really excited for our conversation today. Thank you for being here.
Yes, absolutely. And I always say that, any pain that you experience in your life or anything that you've learned, any lessons, it's all a complete waste if you don't share it with other people, So that's exactly why I'm doing this. So
That's awesome. I'm excited. So let's dive into it. So I would love to know from your perspective, so how is dieting related to women's self-esteem? Because okay, so maybe I should even back up before that and just our topic is dieting don't work. I think a lot of us probably know that just from our own personal experiences, right? I know from my perspective, done everything under the sun, the grapefruit diet and the whatever, you name it. I'm sure a lot of people have been like that. So maybe let's start there. Why doesn't dieting actually work?
Well, there are a lot of reasons that diets don't work, but I think the first thing I want to mention is that the real tragedy and the problem with dieting over and over again and then failing because they don't work is that women don't see that the reasons why the diets don't work, and because they all look so different on the surface. There's keto, there's, as you said, grapefruit diet, there's Atkins, there's South Beach, there's, whatever, eat right for your blood type, all of this stuff. And they all look so different that you feel like that you're the common denominator. So you think the diet didn't fail, I failed. And so to answer your first question, that is how it's related to women's self-esteem, because it wrecks our self-esteem, because we walk away from every failure thinking that it was because we didn't have enough willpower and that there's something wrong with us. But diets, there's lots of things about, individual diets that aren't necessarily bad, like steering us toward whole foods and, like the Whole30, something like that. But the structure behind every diet is the same, and that's why they don't work. So Let's see. So to start off with, you're making all of these huge changes all at
Mhm.
once. And in like, 2 weeks, you're going to make like 10 straight changes, doing everything completely different than what
Right.
you usually do. And that requires an enormous amount of willpower that eventually runs out. But then even if you do manage to stick with it for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, and you follow it to the letter and you lose some weight, when you're done with the diet, you go back to your old habits and your old
Mm,
patterns, and nothing changed. So that's why the weight comes back. So you don't learn anything. Diets are one size fits all. So if you do the South Beach diet and I do the South Beach diet, and then your
mm.
sister who lives in California does the South Beach diet, I have kids, maybe you don't, maybe she works and we don't,
Yeah.
we have different lifestyles, we have different preferences. And so they're not going to all fit everybody.
Mhm.
That's another reason you don't learn anything. They're one size fits all, too many changes. Yeah, I mean, those are the three big reasons. But as you can see, there's lots of other structural pieces to it that they all have in common that make them just fail in the long run overall. And they really just don't work. And the whole point is, it's like life is a process of learning how to, you don't learn anything when you don't have trial and error and some sort of
Right.
like setbacks. I don't like to call it failure, but you learn from
Right.
all of those. And so when you're
Mhm.
doing this huge, I'm throwing out all the food in my house, and you can't stick with it, you didn't learn anything. One big reason diets are terrible is because it's focusing like on the exact
Mm.
thing that you are unhappy about. You're
Yeah.
focused intensely on your body. That creates resistance. And if you eat emotionally, that resistance, it's going to push you to do the very thing that you're trying not to do, which is eat. So,
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You hit on so many things I want to go back to.
okay.
So actually, let me ask you this. So going back to just even the word diet. So we started with the premise that dieting doesn't work, and then talked a lot about you name different diets and things. So what is your definition of diet? Like, I think everyone knows like that concept and stuff, and that word gets thrown around a lot. So how would you define diet?
Well, there are two different connotations that people have when you say the word diet. The first one is obviously I'm going on a diet, but then the
Mhm.
other one is your daily intake, the
Right.
diet that you follow. So,
Mhm.
and it's tough because, when you talk about diet, like what your diet is, it just
Mhm.
sounds negative because we're
Yeah.
also used to thinking of it in the dieting, restricting way.
Right.
So it's really just what you eat, not in a day, but like just the patterns that you follow. It could mean you're a vegetarian or a vegan, or
Mhm.
you eat paleo or that type of a diet. That there's like different types of specialty diets, but
Mhm.
just for the average person who's not trying to follow a specialty diet and who's not on a diet, it's just what you typically eat, and that changes. It changes
Right.
based on lots of things. So I don't like the idea that we're locking ourselves into meal plans, because I think
Right.
it's not realistic. It's life.
Yeah.
Things change. You go to a birthday party, you have some cake.
Mhm.
Geez,
Yeah.
not a big deal.
Exactly. Well, and I think the whole nature of it that you hit on, that it's time restricted, and so you're so focused on that, and achieving in a lot of times probably unrealistic goals as to what can happen in this time frame, and then when that doesn't happen, then you have that sense of failure, and
Mhm.
combined with all of the changes right up front. So I thought that was all really fascinating to just highlight all the issues with it. So then you also got into, I thought what you said was really intuitive, that you're focusing on the thing that you don't like, and or
Mhm.
that's difficult. And then that is, I thought that was brilliant, because when you see it like that, then you say, well, that right there, like, of course it's not going to work then, if you're always focusing on the negative thing, on the thing that you so desperately want to change, if that is what your focus is. So I think that's a good segue into like from there, like, so then how is that deeply connected to our self-esteem, and what can you do to change that?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, all food is it's fuel for our bodies. It's how we nourish ourselves. And when the only thing we're associating with the food that we eat is how it's going to show up on the outside of our bodies. That's just a complete disconnect because
Mm,
focusing on what you look like really it's how you feel. If the food fuels you properly, you're going to feel excited and relaxed and even euphoric if you're really,
mm,
going into, like, I've experimented before with a raw food diet and I felt like I had just, like I was had a buzz. It was so amazing. But yeah, so we're talking about food in a restrictive way, and that means we're disconnecting from the food that we eat. But yeah, so and I think I apologize. I think I lost your question because I was
No, that's okay. Just the
sorry.
connection with self-esteem. No, no, that's so
Self-esteem,
fine.
yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, it all goes back to self-esteem. So when you're focused on your body and trying to, I hate what I'm seeing. I feel like crap about myself. I need to stop eating so much. I need to stop eating these things so that I can lose weight. And then you keep failing on the diets, of course, and you perceive that you're the reason for the failure. It wrecks your self-esteem. And the problem is that over time, I mean, I dieted for 25 years and
Mm,
oh, it was just, I mean, my
wow.
story, it was awful. It was, my self-esteem was in the toilet. Like I had none after that long of a time. And I had an eating disorder and it was just totally, it had dominated my life trying to lose weight and be thin and look perfect.
Mhm.
But, Jenny, we're also used to hearing the same tired narrative, like I need to go on a diet. I need to
Yeah.
lose weight. New Year's resolutions and, what's the latest diet? And even like it just started to hit me at some point. Like, of course, I'm a dietitian and this is what I do, but I have so many beautiful friends, smart women, beautiful inside and out, and who have so much to share and to give, and their power that they could be expressing out into the world to help people is being completely just abandoned because all we talk about is what we look like and how, we look. We're so hard on ourselves or bashing ourselves. And it's like, why
Yeah.
are we still talking about dieting? It is absolutely insane. It doesn't work. Why is it a thing anymore? We need
Mhm.
to like get to a point where we're not like, I want us to be like, God, remember, I want my daughters to be like, my mom, they used to do this thing where they dieted. Isn't that
That's such a
crazy?
weird word. Have you ever heard that word before? Can
Yeah.
you
It
imagine
needs to,
going in the future?
God, it needs to go away with like the rotary telephone or something, but
Right.
like a relic.
So that is a really fascinating thing though to think about that so much of it really is a cultural thing. And what do you see changing culturally that would help aid that? What do you because I think about that and as you were saying I'm like okay, so that would be a cultural thing. And but it's so deep in our psyche and it keeps coming out. It makes me think of like commercials and
Mhm.
advertising and marketing and like they know that so deep that they use that and it does. It hits home, it hits a nerve, and it works. That's why they keep going back to that. So,
Yeah.
what do you see as like in the culture things that could be helpful to change that? Because it does come up everywhere. Conversations, this, that, everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think it's starting to change with the body positive movement. And
Mhm,
seeing all the ads with women of all different shapes and sizes and skin colors and hair
mhm,
textures and all of that. And I think there's tons more representation, and that's awesome. It's really great. But at the end of the day, we are absorbing these messages still that we are not enough, that what we look like
mhm,
is where we find our value and our worth. And when we don't conform to the standard, even though we know it's there and it's BS, we're
mhm.
still deeply affected by it. And
Right.
especially if you've been living in, I mean, if you grew up in the 80s like I did, I mean, you'll never
Mhm.
probably be able to rid yourself of that. I mean,
Mm.
I will not try on clothes. I take it home. I'm like, no, I'll buy it. I'll try it on at home. I don't want to stand and look at my. It's like it's terrible. But I really think the only thing that really will change it is to not try to fix what's broken. I mean, that's good that we're doing it and we're trying to, but I think to come over here and to focus on what's productive and
Mm,
creative and beautiful, which to me is women setting goals, reconnecting with their dreams that they used to have when they're little. See, women are forgetting, we don't realize the power that we
mm,
have. And
yeah.
because in every way, not just with media images about our bodies, but like I don't want to sound like some, like constantly talking about patriarchal culture, but it is, like we're trained in very subtle and not so subtle ways to be quiet, look pretty, don't take up too much
Hmm.
space, don't say what you think,
Hmm.
apologize, get out of the way, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, so it's such a problem that I feel like the only way to make that, we don't want that to be the focus, and the only way to do that is to focus our attention somewhere else. So
Mm,
setting goals, remembering your dreams, it's not a bad thing if you have a family and you want to spend 5 hours a week doing something that you love, that's uniquely yours, that's a hobby or a goal that you want to set. I mean, we feel like we're not even allowed to have our own passions or follow them.
mm,
It's a real problem, I think, especially for women who have kids. Not, it's a problem for everybody, but women who have children that they're taking care of are really get
hmm.
this message that it's selfish and that, anyway. So that's what I think the solution is to
Yeah.
refocus on your power.
I love that. And I think in w- keep going deeper here, but I want to hold that goal conversation because I definitely want to dive in deep into that in the second segment because I think that is such a powerful thing and such a unique perspective on it. Especially, I don't think I would have ever put that with weight loss, and so I
Yeah.
love that. So I can't wait to dive deep into that. Um, but I want to go back to something that I heard you saying just about our environment, and it just makes me think of just having that
Mhm.
awareness factor of our environment. I think is the first step, being critical of that awareness factor. What is around me? What
Yeah.
messages am I receiving? And then just understanding the environment and its impact on losing weight, and not even just losing weight, but just changing our habits and changing what our focus is. And obviously this conversation is specifically around weight, but in all of those habits that we want to change. So talk to me about a little bit about the importance of that environment. How much does that really affect being able to lose weight, being able to hit the goals that we want to make?
Well, environment is it's tremendously important, and the problem is that we're also used to looking at our environments that we don't notice what's actually
Mm,
happening around us anymore. But your environment, there's a success coach called his name is James Clear, and he
mm.
studies habit change and environment,
Atomic
the
habits.
influence.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yes.
love him so much. But he has a great quote, and it says, "Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior." So
Mm,
it's invisible because you're immersed in it and you can't see it.
yeah.
But of course, being a dietitian, and because women want to ask me, they want to know how to lose weight. I always tell them, like, let's go in your kitchen, and I bet
Mm.
you if I walked in, I would notice immediately 5 to 10 things that are sabotaging you without
Yeah.
you even really knowing it.
Mm,
Um, so on the negative side, there are, food, soda, stuff just out where you can see it. So if it's in your line of sight, and these are proven in scientific studies, you're more
mm.
likely to just grab it and drink it mindlessly if it's sitting there in your face. If you open up your cabinets and all of those unhealthy foods, I mean, I have unhealthy stuff in my kitchen because my kids
Yes.
like to eat stuff that I don't want to eat for myself, but
Blame it on the kids. It's in the house because of
Ah,
them.
yeah, yeah. Get this out of my face. But literally, get this out of my face. I put it in a
Yeah.
drawer that I don't ever
Yep.
have to access. They get it. So it's like having to take an extra step to
Mm,
get to something unhealthy. Like if you say, gosh, I really want, some chips, but then it's in a drawer and it's in a Tupperware container, and then you have to open it and take off the chip clip. It sounds stupid, but it's
Put
like,
in the password.
oh yeah, right. Put it in a safe, but like, if you have to, the more steps you have to take to get to the food, those are opportunities for you to check yourself and say, do
Yeah.
I really want this? And at the
Mhm.
same time, putting out healthy foods, putting out a bowl of fruit, and
Mm.
people are like, really, just put out a bowl of fruit? But really, it does
Yes.
work. Um, Also, people's kitchens are cluttered.
Mm.
They don't have stuff that they need to cook often, and cooking is critical. If you want to take charge of your health and lose weight, you need to learn how to at least navigate your kitchen and make
Mm.
a few meals every once in a while. Even if you
Yeah.
made like a basic, boring, not super, variety filled gourmet meal, you're going to be healthier than if you
Mhm.
just order DoorDash and it comes in from the restaurant, because it's going to
Right.
be loaded with sugar and
Mhm.
fat and
Food
salt.
oils. Yep.
Yeah. So you can set your environment up actually so that you don't need any willpower.
Mm.
And finally, I love saying this, is that people's kitchens are normally a place of stress and anxiety.
Mm.
And like, I don't want to be in this. I don't want to cook. I don't feel like it. If you
Yeah.
set your kitchen up, you get it weeded out and cleaned out and set it up properly, and make it a place of beauty
Mm.
and relaxation, it's so much more. You're going to cook more. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I
That
have a free guide actually on my website, if I can give my little plug for that. But it's
yes.
free, and it's setting up I've called it your ultimate weight loss kitchen. So if anyone's listening and wants to get a guide and
Ah.
start getting after it, kidding.
Yes. Tell us what your website is so it's super simple to go
Sure.
there.
Okay, sure. It's CamilleMartinRD.com.
Awesome. And that's so, just that connection just in general with environment, but also just the aesthetics and the beauty and the feel that you get when you're in an environment. That's just really interesting to equate that with your kitchen, because usually and with weight loss, you usually think of it as just like setting up your home in general, have it be a place where you want to be and be
Mhm.
comfortable, but just that's fascinating having it be a beautiful place to be and a place that brings enjoyment, then that will make you want to cook and that will help with the weight loss. So that's a really
Yeah,
interesting connection there.
definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, this is such a great conversation. So many golden nuggets. And I'm really excited to be able to dive into the goals and the connection with that in our
Okay,
second segment. So we'll
awesome.
just take a quick break here. Thanks for joining me on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV and the Journey with Jennie podcast. I'm Jennie with Camille Martin, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to Journey with Jennie on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV and the Journey with Jennie podcast. I'm Jennie, and we have been discussing with our guest, Camille Martin, why dieting don't work. We have discussed how dieting is related to self-esteem and the importance of an environment in weight loss. So let's move into goals. This is going to be a very interesting conversation and one I don't think you'll hear very often. So, Camille, how does setting a big goal help you in weight loss? This is a really fascinating concept to me.
Yeah, well, it helps in a lot of ways because, first of all, women's usually their primary goal is, even if you work, even if you have other stuff going on, our overarching goal in life is, I need to lose weight. And it's sad, it's a tragedy. And that was my goal for a very long time. But how setting and achieving a goal that has nothing to do with your weight and what you look like, it puts you in touch with your It just puts you in touch with your power. It puts you in
Mm,
touch with your creative side as opposed to your critical side. And it shifts all of the focus away from your body,
mm,
and what you're capable of to what you look like, to what you're capable of and you can create.
mm.
So setting goals that don't have anything to do with what you look like, it takes you out of that self-critical space where your inner critic is on like high alert, like, telling you how awful you look. And that is wrecking your self-esteem. So when you take your focus off of all of that and you're putting your focus toward something that you're excited about, something that has to do with your inner power that you're creating in your life, and setting a goal, just setting
Yeah.
it is exciting, because most women have forgotten that they even had dreams a
Yes.
long time ago. You know what I
So
mean? So
true.
it
Yes.
really is. We've lost
Yes.
touch with
Uh-huh.
who we really are. Yeah. So,
Yes.
and my story actually, when I decided finally that I was going to quit dieting and just
Hmm.
stop doing everything, it was a huge turning point in my life, obviously, because I stopped dieting. But I was afraid I was going to start gaining all of this weight just because
Mhm.
I decided to stop dieting and micromanaging every single bite of
Yeah.
food I put in my body.
Yeah.
But when I woke up the next day after making that decision, I was so excited and like
Mm.
peaceful and relaxed
Yeah.
that all of a sudden I had all of this brain space and this energy to devote
Hmm.
to learning about my food. And that's what I decided to do, was to educate myself about food and
Huh.
nutrition and health. um, and so I wasn't having this constant conversation about, how many calories did I eat yesterday, how long did I work out, and how many calories did I burn. All of a sudden I was like, well, wow, let me just look up on the internet and see, ask questions, see how foods affect my body, how it affects my
Hmm.
health. And then that that preliminary search led me to get really excited and say, well, maybe I'll take a class at the university after work. So I decided to take a nutrition 101 class. And every day after, well, not every day, but a couple of days a week after work, I went down to Georgia State University in Atlanta, and wasn't actually the most, it was kind of scary. It was pitch black dark and downtown Atlanta isn't like the safest. I mean, whatever. Anyway, so it was out of my comfort zone, but I took that class. I got super excited about it, and I decided to keep going, and then ended up as a dietitian, not
Hmm.
because I was planning on doing that, but then at the same time, I love to run, but I had previously had the attitude of like, I'm gonna run just to burn calories.
Mm.
So I would go out on these 5 mile runs and like just kill myself on the run. And if I
Mhm.
wasn't sprinting or really making myself suffer, it wasn't worth it. So I
Mm.
started just taking a jog or taking a walk, and I reconnected with my love of running. So I started setting goals like maybe I'll run a 5K. I'd never done a race. Maybe I'll do a 10K. And then ultimately I ran 4 marathons, which was just
Wow.
shocking to me because I never would have thought I could do that.
Yeah.
So all of those goals that I was setting and achieving, and there were others that were involved in that. That didn't necessarily have to do with what I looked like. I mean, nutrition does affect
Mhm.
what you look like, and running obviously does, but those were just my two. But it stimulated such excitement and joy
Mhm.
in my life that it sort of spilled over into every aspect of my life, especially my health. And the last thing I was doing was sitting around going, I'm going to try not to eat chips later. Like I
Yeah.
hope I
Yeah.
have enough willpower to not eat ice cream in front of TV later. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like the rising tide lifts all boats. It's just setting and achieving all these goals. It's like it brings up everything in your life. So yeah.
Fascinating. 2 things that really stood out to me just at the end there when you were talking about, like, you were finding yourself focusing, don't eat chips. And I know, like, when we're told to set goals, you put things in the positive, you never put things in the negative. Like, I like to say, lose the weight or lose 10 pounds or
Yeah.
don't eat the chips. Like, like if you're trying to stop smoking, like stop smoking. Like, that's not what you focus on. You focus on what you want to achieve because all your brain
Yes.
hears is the chips. It's like don't
That's
chips is
so
don't is
true.
out of there. So like you're still focusing on that thing that you're trying to get rid of. So it's counterproductive. So that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. interesting. And going back, it was really interesting when you started talking about the goals. I find it fascinating that it really sounded like a very subtle mindset shift in there because you were still um you were still thinking about the food, but it was just a different way you thought about it. You thought about like, oh, let me educate myself and learn more about these foods that I'm eating and how can it help me. So
Yeah.
you were still thinking about food. It wasn't that you're like, "Oh, don't think about this food at all. Don't think," and the running, it was the same thing. It's like you still did the running, you just had a different perspective on it, a different
Yes.
reason to do it. And I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of people again have a disconnect with their food. We're looking at it, we're working against our food. We're
Yeah.
thinking of it as something that hurts us, and that we're trying to avoid. Or if it helps us, we've got to force ourselves to eat it. Love the
Yeah.
graphic.
Yeah. It's like, "Take it all today."
Yeah. But like it's not there's nothing compatible or synergistic
Mm,
with the idea of between us and our food. And it's all, as you said, focused in the negative. I want to lose weight. I'm going to cut
mhm.
carbs. I'm going to
Yeah.
quit eating, you know, dairy. I'm going to quit. It's all negative.
Mhm.
And when you have a negative focus, you're right. You're bringing the thing into your life that you're actually trying not to bring.
Yeah.
So when you switch to a positive focus, I want to learn how food benefits me, because the
Yeah.
truth is you really can eat, you can eat stuff that's not healthy for you
Yeah.
sometimes. We don't have,
Uh-huh.
we're so black or white. Like
Mhm.
it's got to be, balls to the wall. I'm going to be perfect and eat everything organic and raw or whatever. Or I'm just going to go to McDonald's and head through the drive through and order enough for 5 people and then scarf it
Right.
down. We're just so not balanced. And
Yeah.
you know,
And it goes to that forgiving yourself too, because
mhm,
and that kind of goes back to the very beginning of this conversation that we had, just why diets don't work because you're so narrow and focused and it doesn't leave room for, the occasional slip up. And so like you're gonna, and that's why it's a journey, right? Like life is
yes.
that journey. It's the step, it's the process of becoming and creating those healthy habits that you have as a regular cadence over time, not just something I'm
Yeah.
doing really fast in a too short, 2 weeks, short time period. And that's why it's harder to be able to forgive yourself but if you're looking at the long haul, like this is my life. Like, yeah, I can have
Yes.
that every now and then. I can do that and not beat yourself up for it.
Absolutely. And I think one thing important you just said is that we tend to look at like, oh, I slipped up, or I ate something that was bad for me and that was like a mistake and something harmful. But if you change the way you think of it and you look at, a plate of cookies, and you can be objective and say, those probably they're not gonna nourish me properly the way for me to feel good and function the way I want to function. They might make me feel good in the moment, and maybe that's what I want right now, is a
Yeah.
little bit of a sugar rush, and that's okay. It's not,
Mhm.
there's no mistakes, there's no failure, there's no, none of that really. As you said, it's a lifetime journey, and it's
Mhm.
like, some days you just want to, yeah, we're just hard on ourselves. We're not having
Yeah.
any self-compassion. We beat ourselves up and we think we're failing constantly, and that just
Mhm.
doesn't do anything for you to have an empowered outlook for your life, and
Mhm.
to be in the driver's seat and to put yourself in charge. It's always like,
Yes.
that's dieting. It's this passive, like, oh, I
Right.
failed, I need somebody to tell me what to do. You can learn what to do. You really don't even need me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I can be a cheerleader and help you look at things in a different way, but as far as what to eat, it's pretty simple.
Mhm.
We really overcomplicate it. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I think one thing you said there that I just thought was interesting, I have another thing about the goals, but what you said about just how it makes you feel. And I think that to me is the most critical question that we can ask ourselves because how do I feel when I eat that food? And that's what empowers you to choose to continue eating it or not eating it. And I think that
Mhm.
works for dieting, but it also works, or well, we're not dieting, but like in cleaning up, just being healthy and making those healthy habit changes.
Yeah.
But also with things when you do need to be restricted from a certain diet or food group. And I just
Mhm.
think of those who have celiac, and just like you
Oh, yeah.
cannot have the gluten. So, and it is the change of the mindset, and it's understanding, it's like, it's not like, oh, I can't eat the pizza anymore. It's that does not serve me. I feel awful when I have that. My body goes into
Yes.
crumbling, like, and so like I'm choosing to eat the things that make me feel good. And it works for, for just choosing healthy habits, and for
Mhm.
the mindset and mind frame that you need to be in for choosing the things that truly are serving your body the best.
Absolutely. And yes, to be very clear, there are certain health issues that do require that people do not eat certain foods. And yeah, so what I usually am dealing with or talking with women about is women who are eating emotionally, and so they're
Yeah.
using food in an
Mhm.
unhealthy way. So I always say it's not about the food as much as it is about the way that you're using the food, the way
Mm.
that you're eating. It is about the food,
Yeah.
but first let's focus on if you have an unhealthy relationship with food, and I did. I was a binge eater, and I used food to make myself feel better and to calm myself
Mhm.
down. And I still have all of those same feelings inside. I just know how to manage it. And the first way to manage it is for me to not beat myself up about it, because
Mhm.
I figured
Yeah.
out I had to go way, way back in my own personal journey and realize that I trained myself to do that.
Mm.
So, emotional eating is what I'm usually talking about. So,
Yeah.
having a slice of birthday cake is
Mhm.
totally, it's, you don't have to be perfect, and you didn't fail, and you're not, you're not doing anything wrong. But just ask yourself, like, why are you eating pieces of birthday cake? Why
Mhm.
do you feel, are you aware that you're shoveling it in and you're not being
Mm.
present while you eat it? Being
Yeah.
present while you have a piece of birthday cake and mindfully eating it, I would much rather you do that than like scarf down some vegan
Mhm.
meal and just keeps, you can't
Right.
stop,
Yeah.
because it's an
Yeah.
unhealthy way. And that's what
Mm.
needs to be fixed first. Yeah.
Yeah, that just definitely makes me think of a cultural difference too. I just think of, I've heard so much, like the French especially, and I know in other countries too, it's very common to sit and have linger over a meal a very long time, and just, take a bite and just really enjoy it, and just enjoy the presence of the person that you're with, or the people that you're with, and the food and the experience and how it tastes. And that is something that is completely devoid in America.
Oh
And
my God.
just
Yeah.
like, we're just like scarfing it down and moving to the, I mean, just even the concept of eating while you're walking is like, what?
Oh,
Or
or in
at
front
least
of the
it used to
computer
be.
like this.
Yes. Like, who would
I
do
do
that?
it. I'm not making fun of
Yes.
anybody. I still have a
Yeah.
problem with eating in front of the
Yeah.
computer. And I'm laughing when you talked about France, actually, because I lived there for a year. It
Really?
was the greatest experience of
Ah.
my life. And I worked at a hotel. I didn't do anything, but we had lunch from 12 until 3. And we would like walk to a restaurant that was like 5 minutes away. We would order all these courses. We would drink wine, but like slowly sip on it, talk, laugh. And we got back to the hotel at 2, and we had a whole hour to rest and let our
Wow.
food digest. I was like, why am I going back to
That's
the United States? Why am I going
amazing.
back to my job where I can't even get up out of my chair? But
Wow.
yeah, it is a cultural difference, and our society is not conducive to eating mindfully. Absolutely
No.
not. So that's a big
Yeah.
area that if people work on one area, and if that's an
Mhm.
area like, that's a great place to start. Clean out your kitchen and
Yeah.
then start trying to eat mindfully. It's
Mhm.
harder than it sounds.
And I think that whole relationship, just all the things that you've been saying, just about why we eat a certain way and just being mindful. And I think it is, until, it's like anything, until you're introduced to it, you might not have stepped back and actually ever thought about that. And so I think that's so much of what is happening with a lot of us here in the United States is, we have these issues and we're not even aware of them. And it just makes me
Mhm.
think of, the show The Biggest Loser, that used to be on TV, a while ago. And I remember seeing like the whole, like, yes, the workouts and the things, and it was always so interesting to watch the workouts that happened and the success, but always the piece where they would sit down and talk with them, and the mindset, and that always boggled me. I'm like, oh, why are they doing that? Like, I don't get that and stuff. But now I do, and I do
Yeah.
think it's like that foreign concept that until you really process through and understand, like, the our mindset and the way our mind works affects our eating, and then, our habits, and then our weight gain, or losing weight, so much. And just that integral connection is so, so key.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, being aware, awareness is the key to everything. You can't make changes until you understand, until you really can step back and look at what you're actually doing. Because a lot of us don't realize, well, we definitely don't realize the thoughts that are going through our
Mm,
head. Like, I know some of my big ones, and I've talked to many women who say the same, but it's like, the compulsion to go grab, your ice cream and sit in front of Netflix when you've
mm,
said, I really want to do something different tonight. I don't want to do that. But then you find yourself at the end
mm,
of the long day saying, I deserve to
mm.
relax.
Yeah.
I've worked so hard. So, like, even just being aware of those thoughts goes such
Yeah.
a long way to changing that habit. But then you
Mm,
can also start back here and say, well, if my days are unmanageable, let me start there and be
mm.
aware of the stress that I'm experiencing that's setting me up for these thought patterns that are pushing me to do what I'm trying not to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So awareness, and we don't notice the thoughts that we think. We're so used to hearing our voice in our head, but also the inner critic is like one
Mm.
thing that we all need to be very, very aware of, because
Yeah.
she is vicious, and
Yes.
she's going to keep
Yes.
us stuck and put us in our place and tell us how awful we are. So
Exactly, which is why I think going back to the goals that, just like
yeah.
is so powerful that it gives that overarching, it helps you to kind of override those thoughts. So like,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
this is what my mind is focusing on. And it doesn't let that chatter get so big and just kind of just overrides it basically.
Yeah.
So I'm curious with women that you've worked with, what are some of the goals that they have set, to give us some ideas of things like you shared some of yours that you use personally. I'm kind of
Yeah.
curious, if you can share some of the ones that some people that have used that you've worked with.
Well, to be honest, I don't know if I could pinpoint like one specific thing that people work on, because it's really very personal, and
Hmm.
everyone's big goal is different for them.
Mm,
So like they don't always share with me exactly what they're working on. I mean, some of it is like running a road race or
hmm.
taking a class or getting back into their foreign, like French, like what I,
Hmm.
love
Yeah.
doing so much. So it's stuff like that, but it's different for every woman, because like what looks like a big goal to me, um,
Mm,
looks like small to somebody else. Or
mhm,
usually what it is that people feel like their goals are really, really small and insignificant, and they don't really want to share, like they think it's stupid. Or
mm,
but it doesn't matter what it is. I always just feel like starting with a dream or like when you were growing up, oh, I really wanted to be this. And
yeah.
you could I wanted to be an interpreter at the UN. I thought that would just be like a
Mm.
dream job. And then I gave up on that. But then, like, reconnecting with my French, that was one of the goals I had, is to
Yeah,
move to France and live for a year. And I did that.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. But I was just thinking of an analogy, and this may not be a good one, but when you were just saying that like trying not to, what was it, it was like if you have a boyfriend, a dysfunctional relationship and an abusive relationship you
Mhm,
just got rid of, and you're feeling sad, like trying not to be sad about that, it's like that's never going to work. But what you could do over here is just get excited about your life and try to attract
mm,
a new person and
yes,
a healthier relationship into your life. Because if you're always trying to
mhm,
not, I don't want to miss this person, I don't want to eat, I don't,
yeah,
focus
yeah,
on something positive, and it shifts everything over. But yeah, any goal, it doesn't matter what it is, because if your mindset has been dominated for the last 10, 15, or
mhm,
20 years with what you look like, and what woman has not had that focus, creating something, taking
yeah.
time for yourself, it's nourishing to your soul and to your mind and your spirit, and that will ultimately show up in your body.
Well said. I think that is an amazing way to end our conversation. That was phenomenal. I absolutely love that. It's just shifting the mind and changing the mindset and giving you an active way to do that. And
Yes.
I love that. That is absolutely amazing. Absolutely fabulous. And I think it's going to be so, so helpful to so many people that are listening to this. So thank you so much for being with us today, Camille. This has just been a fascinating and super helpful conversation. Can you please tell us how people can continue to benefit from your wisdom by getting a hold of your book and getting in touch with
Yeah.
you?
Absolutely. Well, all of my social media handles are on my website. You can find them there. And again, the website's CamilleMartinRD.com. And then my book is on my shop tab on my webpage. So yes, I encourage
It's up on the
everyone
screen.
to get it, not
Yeah.
because I'm trying to, promote myself, but I really do teach you exactly how to change your thoughts and the step-by-step process to changing your thoughts and your habits. And when you do both, they start to give you exponential results because they feed off each other in a positive way. So yeah, thank you for letting me share that. And I loved being here. I really
Yay.
appreciate it. It was so fun. Thank
Yay.
you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you were. This has been so amazing. I hope people reach out and get in touch with you and grab a copy of your book. So thanks for joining us. And thank you all for joining me on this journey of life. I'm Jenny, and you are listening to Journey with Jenny on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV and the Journey with Jenny podcast. If you liked what you heard today and found it helpful, please subscribe to my podcast and leave a 5-star rating and review. I'd be so grateful. Thanks for listening. That's a wrap. Thanks so much for joining me on SM Enlightenment Radio or TV, or joining us on the Journey with Jenny podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please download my podcast and leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help, and I would be so grateful. I'm Jenny. Have a good one.